By watching or listening to this show, you are acknowledging that you are of legal age to purchase and consume cannabis in your region. This production is for adults only. Welcome to the Cannabis 101 podcast, part of the Cannabis Life Experience. Your guide through the legalization and consumption of cannabis in Canada and beyond. Join us on this journey and adventure with the wonderful plant. Here's your host, Dean Millard.
Hello there, and welcome to episode 89 of the Cannabis 101 podcast. Hour one, that is, hour number 2 will come out tomorrow morning. On this show, it's not just about getting high, it's about getting healthy. And my name is Dean Millard, and I'll be your host for the next hour or so. And there is certainly one way that we like to kick things off on the program, and that's by asking you, what's your groove?
Put that in your pipe and smoke it.
Can you dig it?
Kinda grabs you by the boo-boo, don't it?
Pipe in a crate, long in a blend.
This is great. This is the bee's knees.
Can you dig it?
So when I ask what's your groove, if you're new to the show, I'm asking that while you're listening. Are you grooving with anything cannabis? Do you got a joint, maybe a bong, your favorite pipe? You're just relaxing with some, some really, really cool CBD cultivars. Maybe you've got a drink, edible, who knows? Whatever it is you're grooving with, if indeed you are, please let me know. I have the Blue Dream Click from Original Stash. This is really cool. You actually literally just turn it and it comes out slowly. It doesn't gush out or anything like that. And then, you could put it on the top of your joints if you wanted to. I do that. I line the joint, put some keef on it. But today, I've thrown it in the Slash from Stone Smiths. 2 clicks, 12-second auto fire. You wait 4 seconds to let it heat up, and then you go. The flavors, they come through so beautiful with this. And excuse me, right now, real good opportunity. There's we're going to talk about a vape shipping crisis going on in the United States right now. That, of course, is going to affect companies that ship to the United States. But that means a lot of consumers will not be able to get their vapes from the United States that live in Canada. Perfect time for you to get on board with a Canadian company. It's a local Edmonton company. We'll tell you more about them as we go, but just a heads up, if you are looking to get some sort of vape, concentrate, pen, accessory, check local before you look at the United States, because it's going to be hard to get those, as you will find out as we roll along. All right, so now that we have our groove on, it's time to find out what is coming down the hash pipe on this episode. David Wylie will join us for This Week in Cannabis News. He is, of course, from the OZ. We're going to talk about essential weed workers, something that I totally disagree with from High Canada magazine, and something I think that is terribly irresponsible. We are also going to talk about that vape shipping crisis and some big pot predictions for the next few years. Malka Labell of the Green Generation Co., as always, on the business of cannabis. We're going back to green roots in the lead. In Game Changers, it's Seth Rogen's mother, Sandy, and in what it means to be green. We're going to discuss how the legacy market can get into the legal market, but how there's also a stigma within the cannabis industry. There's a stigma about cannabis, and there's also a stigma sometimes from that legacy market about legalization. And we're all going to have to work together if this thing is going to take off like we think it will. The cannabis question is about a specific type of cultivar, one-to-ones I'm asking you about. Our cannabis characters from Pineapple Express, and we'll tell you about the weed word of the day. It'll be about a joint and how a bit of a growing technique. We'll also let you know about the Weed Weekly. That comes out every Friday, and you can get it right into your inbox. All right, let's get it going right now, though, with the cannabis question.
It's prize time. Chime in on the cannabis question.
Okay.
And you could win a Cannabis 101 podcast prize pack.
Pipe and a grape, bong and a blint.
Hit us up on any of our social media feeds or email us at cannabis101podcast@gmail.com.
Okay, here we go.
So if you're watching, you can see the question on the screen. If you're listening, check out the YouTube channel, Cannabis 101 Podcast. We also stream this on our Facebook and Twitter channels and our Twitch channel as well. The question is, what is your favorite one-to-one cannabis cultivar? You can email me, cannabis101podcast@gmail.com. You can also stay anonymous and win a prize. Get us on Facebook and Instagram, the Cannabis 101 Podcast, and on Twitter at the Cannabis 101. Chime in to win a Cannabis 101 Podcast prize pack. Actually, chiming in about anything on the show gets you into the draw, and then we pick a name and send it out to our winner. So what is your favorite one-to-one cannabis cultivar? Right now, I'm on the Dance Hill kick from Spinach. We did it recently in Know Your Buds with Chris Ianson, and I absolutely love it for daytime use. It provides me with the creativity that I really want. It gets me going because it's a nice sativa, but it doesn't just, blow me right away, so where I'm just absolutely ripped like some other, non-one-to-one cultivars. So that's for me is Dance Hall. That's what I'm going with. I'm absolutely loving it, and just stocked up at Plant Life Aaron Ridge earlier today to grab some earlier this week rather, and grabbed some because I always like to have that and some Blue Dream on hand. Blue Dream it's my go-to in definitely troubled times, but I really like it during normal times as well. So chime in on the cannabis question. What is your favorite one-to-one cultivar? And by the way, make sure you check out my vibe on Relevant. Download the app, then join the Cannabis 101 podcast. We're going to have a party. We'll have cool message boards. We'll have some live audio chats and Q&As. It's very, very cool. And you're not going to get hassled talking about cannabis like on some other social media channels. Awesome stuff on Relevant. Check out the vibe. Current and past guests will be joining us. And you, the listener and viewer, can chime in and get in on the fun. So download the app and then check out the Cannabis 101 podcast vibe on Relevant. We're going to have the founder and CEO on hour number 2 this week to tell you a little bit more about just how cannabis friendly it really is. And, big thanks to Relevant for being a partner and allowing me to set up a vibe there. Of course, the OZ, the Green Generation Co., all great partners of the Cannabis 101 podcast, as is Stonesmiths. As I told you, great local company, stonesmiths.ca. If you're looking to get a vape pen, look no further than the Slash. I mean, this thing is absolutely wonderful. The coolest thing ever is this little built-in loader. You just scoop up your concentrates, throw it in there, or with the click, I just drop it in there, and then boom, away you go. It's discreet if that's what you're looking for. It's effective. The flavors are amazing. And as we're going to tell you a little bit later in This Week in Cannabis News, ordering Puffcos and things like that is going to get really, really hard to Canada very soon. this is a Canadian company. So get in on that and support local. Check them out, stonesmiths.ca. The built-in loader is absolutely beautiful. And they got a new chamber on the way, a redesign. It's going to heat up even faster. It's going to bring you even bigger vape clouds. So very cool stuff from the gang at Stonesmiths with the / stonesmiths.ca.
What's happening? We'll tell you right now on This Week in Cannabis News.
Another delicious segment coming up of This Week in Cannabis News, and you can find all the cannabis news you need at OkanaganZ.com. That beautiful looking website is probably getting closer and closer to becoming a reality when my good friend David Wylie looks out his window. Welcome back to the show, David. How are things?
Things are good. I love that we're taking the same tips from the same fashion folks, because this is this is too much, man.
Yeah, this obviously was not planned, because why would we? But when we both logged onto the system to record this, we were like, oh wow, it's like looking in a mirror almost.
Oh yeah, we both got a good laugh out of that one.
Yeah, indeed. Well, something that is definitely not funny. Well, anything to do with COVID is not funny. But you know, we all have concerns about our health, and you know, we're worried about health frontline workers in the hospitals. But we should also be worried about the frontline workers, you know, that are still out there day to day, especially during the darkest times that we had, and who knows what's still to come. You know, but the people that are allowing us to shop for groceries and different things like that. And in those essential services are cannabis workers.
Yeah, and they want to keep their position front and center right now when it comes to pandemic pay. If you go into a BC cannabis store right now, which is the provincial store, you'll see that workers are wearing buttons that say essential pay for essential work. And that comes back to a policy decision that seems to be leaving both cannabis frontline employees as well as liquor employees in BC out in the cold. And throughout the pandemic, employers have been recognizing the risks and the challenges that frontline workers are facing. And, you know, a lot of companies have been rewarding their workers with a little bit of extra moolah on the side there to show their appreciation that they're coming in and following the policies and, you know, making sure that people can get what they need to get. In BC, that included essential provincial government employees, more than 250,000 eligible workers who provide frontline in-person services in BC at places like hospitals, jails, long-term and assisted living facilities have been receiving a lump sum payment, which is worth about $4 per hour for a 16-week period. And that was supposed to start last March. And here we are more than a year later, and BC cannabis store employees are still excluded from that federal provincial temporary pandemic pay program. So they're wearing buttons and they're trying to put pressure on the government to create a little bit of equity when it comes to that payment. I mean, you know, they are they're frontline facing customers, and we all know that when it comes to the way that people are treating others through the pandemic, it's not always the politest. You know, we've seen those videos on TikTok and on Reddit and wherever else of people getting screamed at, you know, all kinds of craziness that's happening. So cannabis store employees here in BC really want to get what they believe is their fair cut of this pandemic pay, and are urging people also to send a letter, reach out to the finance minister here in BC, Selena Robinson, to show that there's public support behind their cause.
Yeah, and that's so important. You know, if this is an industry needs to be taken seriously and was deemed an essential service, so the people that are working in that shop are just like the people that are working at a grocery till or in a liquor store and things like that. And I know that some cannabis companies really did try to take care of their employees, especially during the worst times when staff shortages were really threatening the closure of some stores. I know, Plant Life Cannabis is owned by the, it's the same company or partnership as the Canadian Brew House. And those, pubs and sports places are, spread across everywhere. So what they did was allowed their Plant Life employees to be able to order food off the brewhouse menu. It was delivered to them. It was free. They were taking care of their employees because they realized that, no matter what you're selling, if you're deemed an essential service, you're dealing with customers and you're putting yourself at risk. And, that has to include the cannabis space for sure.
I love that mention of the different way that companies are going out and trying to show employees that they care. And, I think that that's important. And I hope that kind of attitude where we're treating employees with, that modicum of respect and finding different ways to reward them for a job well done. I hope that continues even post-pandemic.
Yeah, it really should, because it's, this is kind of a good lesson for all of us as well. Just about kind of generosity and kindness and just, dealing with people. Everybody is stressed. Everybody is having a tough time with this. I'm not sure we're all in the same boat. We're in the same storm. Some people have bigger boats than others, but, we have to find a way to get through this for sure. Okay, this next story I'm just going to be honest. I'm disappointed by this next story because I feel that this action by a very reputable and popular cannabis magazine is backwards. It's contrary to the legalization movement. So I wonder what you think. I know you wrote a piece about this, but the publisher of High Canada has decided to back and endorse a black market company. I just find this totally backwards to the legalization movement, and I frankly I think it's just wrong.
It's become clear that some folks just really don't want to play within the framework of legalization, and that extends to the publisher of High Canada magazine. And he says that he's made what is his first ever endorsement over the years, and it's for an illegal mail order marijuana operation. Actually, it goes one step further than an endorsement. The High editor and publisher Cy Williams actually calls his relationship with the store a partnership. So he says that this site is going to carry an official High Canada magazine, a seal of approval, and the unlicensed cannabis store is doing things really that licensed retailers can't. Williams says that soon the site's going to be adding products that's imported from the U.S. company Entourage Therapeutics, as well as CBD products that are clearly making health claims that you just can't make in the legal side of things. Now, of course, none of this is legal. It ships through Canada Post, like a lot of these different companies. And, there are a few real problems here that I have beyond the fact that this isn't a licensed store. First, it highlights the frustration that I'm hearing from legal operators who are wondering why these URLs just don't get blocked. Second, they're classifying themselves as a Canadian medical marijuana company. This is a time when government officials are looking seriously at clamping down on medical growers. In a business like this, saying that it's medical certainly isn't helping the cause for those who are legit. And finally, if you look at the site, I mean, it's confusing, frankly, for new cannabis customers. Even the initials OCS match the Ontario Cannabis Store. So, I really think, like you said, that this is going in the wrong direction. And I think that this is a bit of a losing bet right now. Legal cannabis is growing. The illicit market is sliding, and to go full in on a company that could be shut down overnight just doesn't seem like a great decision as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, it's irresponsible in my opinion, because there's a lot of people that are working really, really hard to convince people that need convincing that cannabis is a legitimate industry. And, then you have somebody that has a very strong following and a big following in the cannabis industry, unfortunately representing a lot of those people in this terrible way, because, I've had a lot of black market companies approach me about advertising, and I'm not going to do it because, I'm standing behind the legal market. undercutting them would be promoting anybody on the black market. And, whether or not the black market ever goes away, I don't know, because the plant is, a lot easier to grow than it is to have black market booze or something like that. But this is just so contrary to everything that so many people have been working for. And frankly, this feeds into the stigma of cannabis that so many people put on the legal industry. And that's just terribly unfortunate and irresponsible, in my opinion.
And you mentioned that unlicensed companies are approaching you, and I've had the same. Mostly unlicensed companies are advertising in High Magazine. There, are a handful of legal companies that are advertising, and they have to make that decision. As far as the ounce is concerned, we are support legal, and we endorse legal products. We endorse legal stores, and are pro legal cannabis. I've never made any bones about that, and that's the way that it's going to stay.
Yep. Us as well here at the Cannabis 101 podcast. So again, and listen, High Canada and a lot of magazines have done, good things in bringing some, I'm not saying every article or the magazine should be thrown out or trashed, but I just disagree with this decision wholeheartedly, and I think it's sending the wrong message. Well, speaking of sending, this is going to be something that's going to be a big problem when it comes to vapes, particularly in the U.S. I'm on a mailing list for Puffco, and I got an email, and I know you saw it as well. And there was a vape crisis at one point because of the black market. Now there's a vape shipping crisis going on with some companies, David.
Yeah, it's an amended U.S. law that is really throttling vape distributors. Here in Canada, really the selection of cannabis vapes is going to be more limited, and popular brands just won't be able to ship here. So here's what's going on. According to JD Supra, there's an omnibus bill called the Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021. That was signed into law late last year. And along with COVID relief and many other provisions are significant restrictions on mailing and shipping vapor products. And some of these penalties are quite serious and criminal penalties if you break this act. So the Appropriations Act amends something called the Prevent All Cigarette Trafficking Act, or the PACT, to include electronic nicotine delivery systems, and those include hemp and CBD vapor products. So under this amended law, vape sellers are really beholden to much more stringent standards when it comes to registering their products with government. They have to label their vapes as tobacco products and need to collect signatures on delivery. There's a whole slew of other things that they have to do as well. And part of this legislation also means that vapor products can no longer be shipped through the U.S. Postal Service. And these tough new laws have basically led UPS and FedEx to announce that they're not going to ship them for home delivery anymore due to the complexity of the laws. Even if a hemp or CBD vapor product manufacturer happens to find a shipping company to send these products to consumers, it's likely to be really prohibitively expensive, and the manufacturer is still going to have to comply with all these stringent rules of the PACT Act. And again, retailers who don't register or comply with this are subject to these penalties, and that includes up to 3 years in prison.
Wow. There is a lot of things that we talk about that will fall into place when the U.S. federally legalizes. And we've talked about apps and things like that. This is just one more of those things that, if cannabis becomes federally legal, this would be, something that they could definitely look at, I would imagine. But it also, it brings up something closer to home in that, if these companies are going to have a hard enough time shipping from the United States, Canadian companies might be able to actually take advantage of this unfortunate situation down in the United States and, start getting, the companies and their products in the hands of consumers that might be ordering from the U.S.
And hey, I love shopping made in Canada products, especially when it comes to these kinds of electronics that need to be, up to safety standards. I think that Canadian companies who are making these kinds of devices really have an opportunity here. I mean, yeah, let's face it. the U.S. market is pretty huge, and if you're not able to access it, that can most certainly be a problem. But it goes both ways. So if American companies can't ship here, then there's going to be quite an opening in the market.
Yeah, and that's where companies, I've got the slash up there, local Edmonton company, can get their product out to other consumers that might ordinarily order from the U.S. because maybe they're not aware that there's so many great companies just here in Canada. But it is unfortunate, and I guess it goes back to something earlier we talked about is the stigma on cannabis, right? Is these things are not being able to be shipped because they deem it as this dangerous sort of drug situation. So a lot of it does come back to that stigma.
And it's weird having to label them as tobacco.
Yeah.
I mean, it really goes to show how the view of these types of devices. Yeah.
Well, it's, what's interesting is, you look at, somebody pointed out that in Quebec, I don't know if you can get vapes right now. I think there's a real situation with vapes. But yet they're okay with people selling pre-rolls. And listen, I love pre-rolls, but you're lighting up. There's combustible action with a joint that is not there with a vape pen. So it's all it's all comes down to education. That's really all it comes down to, and the industry evolving and doing a lot of teaching. And one of the things that's going to influence people and bring them over to the cannabis side where they eventually will learn is the financial side. Let's face it, there are people that will just strictly get into the cannabis business because of money, and all the power to whatever you want to do, that's fine with you. But there was a lot of big predictions when the cannabis industry started, and now a couple of years in, things have settled in, and there's some big predictions down the road that I think should excite a lot of people.
I mean, and this is really crystal ball stuff. Once you start looking this far out, cannabis consultants, the Brightfield Group, is forecasting that the Canadian cannabis market will be peaking by 2026 at about $9 billion in annual sales. Now, that's a huge market. And by that time, they say there will be enough retail stores open to handle the demand. Enough consumers will have successfully transitioned to the legal market. So as far as what Brightfield is saying, Jamie Shao, who is the insights lead at Brightfield and the lead author of this report, says that the massive growth that we've seen this year and probably the next year or two is going to start to taper off, because really ultimately there's only so many new cannabis users who are going to be coming online over the time. And part of the challenge here that cannabis companies are facing is the regulation that is quite tight on products. That includes the 10 milligram limit on edibles, which not a lot of consumers are necessarily into, especially the consumers who are the more heavy users. There's also advertising and packaging restrictions that have had a fairly significant impact on the sector. So there's lots of room for government to step in and even heighten that ceiling right now. So we'll see what happens there. Shao also says that Canada's beverage sector is poised for pretty rapid growth over the next few years. That seems to be a fairly dormant part of cannabis products. They're the least used type of product for cannabis users, but that is likely going to change as more and more people try them, and the beverages get just better tasting, and the effect comes on quicker and offsets quicker, which is something that people really want to see. I mean, there's other kinds of edible products too that might be able to open up the market even more. Savory and baked options, for example, are something that we haven't really seen too much of.
Yeah, a couple of things that I find interesting is, I agree that the 10 milligram limit does hamper people that are experienced, but it's so easy to just go buy your own edible and make it at home and get around that. And I think that, people are starting to catch on to that a little bit. The drink thing is interesting. We really didn't have to, this last summer, was not really a regular summer full of barbecues and doing all these things and hanging out. And I'm not sure this summer. So I think that also plays into it, right? You know, you talk about going to a barbecue and grabbing a 5-pack, I guess it is, unfortunately. But, you know, that really hasn't kind of happened, unfortunately, because of COVID. But the one thing I will say about these predictions, they're not going to happen unless those regulations are, you know, loosened up a little bit. I'm not saying open it up and let people do what they want, but this industry is only going to be able to grow if it's on a level playing field with others. And right now it's not. So the predictions are great, but, you know, as they mentioned, those regulations are there. You know, what does Canada do? How is Canada going to react to a lot of other countries by that time, hopefully legalizing? That's going to be a really interesting thing because, you know, are they basing this on Canada being one of the few countries to still be legal by that point?
You know, there's so many unknowns.
Yeah.
And with big figure predictions like this, we've seen them over the last few years with cannabis. How much is the market worth? How fast is it going to grow? What's it going to be worth a year from now? And they've always been wrong. We love to talk about them. And, you know, if we went back and we revisited them, we could probably make a nice list of the 5 greatest flops as far as predictions were concerned. So they're always fun, but, you know, I think that you and I have seen enough of this to not put too much stock in it. But you know, the $9 billion figure in annual sales is a pretty cool cap as far as I'm concerned, and something that leaves lots of room for growth over the next few years.
Yeah, and at the very least, as far as good news, is they're predicting an upswing instead of bad news. So at least it's good news that they're predicting for the industry, and you know we can get there. We just have to get around a few things, as we've been doing for the last 2+ years. David, thanks as always for joining us. People can find you guys at OkanaganZ.com to get all your cannabis news. The newsletter comes out on Friday, and check them out on Twitter at OkanaganZ. Thanks as always, David.
Thank you.
Beautiful stuff as usual from the artist My Dead Dog. That is the weed song. You will hear the marijuana song a little bit later on in the program. And whenever the Cannabis and Hemp Expo does actually happen, we'll be there broadcasting episodes. You can find more information at cannabishempexpo.com. We will have some free tickets to give away whenever this event does take place. Looking forward to seeing and meeting a lot of the audience of the Cannabis 101 podcast.
You got a joint? No, not on me, man. It'd be a lot cooler if you did.
Time now for Cannabis Characters.
Dopest dope I've ever smoked.
Celebrating the best from fictional 420 film.
Hey, I am your stoner.
And beyond.
Heavy girl with that, man. Is it heavy stuff, man?
So on Cannabis Characters, I like to take a look at some of the legendary, some of the unknown characters, some of the side characters from some of your favorite cannabis movies. And today we're going, because we're going to be talking about Sandy Rogen, Seth Rogen's mother in The Business of Cannabis. I thought it would be fitting to feature one of his movies. We've already talked about his character, Dale Denton, but this is a cool side character from Pineapple Express. We're looking at Red, played by Danny McBride. So Saul and Dale, James Franco and Seth Rogen, I don't want to give away too much of the movie if you haven't seen it, but they show up at Red's house needing some information about a drug lord. And as usual with pretty much anything that Danny McBride is a part of, hilarity definitely ensues. So this is Red, played by Danny McBride in Pineapple Express.
Get in here.
Coming in.
Y'all want to buy some drugs?
Frisky.
Yeah. What's up? What's up?
Get it.
What's up? Give it. Give it. Oh, look at that, huh? What's up, players? I've been up in here trying to get a motherfucking scholarship. Chilling. What's up with the clothes?
Oh, we were camping.
Camping?
Yeah.
Is your lip okay, man?
Been crying?
Oh, my lip. It's cold sore. Never had one before, so start to cry.
Dudes, seriously, we're here for a reason. Just ask him.
Chill, dude. Chill. I'm boiling some eggs over here.
That's
We
great.
got a lot of time to hang out. I'm making a fucking cake.
No shit.
Can I have a
Just
piece of
ask
that?
him, man.
You
What are you
can't.
doing? Don't ask for a piece.
I
Just
can't
ask.
have a piece of that?
No, you can't have a piece. This is private. Do you know what today is?
Tuesday.
This is my cat's birthday today.
I don't see a cat in here. I'm sorry. We let it out by accident?
No, because he died 3 months ago, okay? So now who's the funny guy?
Sorry.
All right? Today is his birthday, and it is a tradition that on his birthday, I'd get up extra early and make him his favorite kind of dessert.
Don't worry, bro. Your cat's going to heaven.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe he went to heaven. He was a little fucker. He could have gone to hell.
What do we talk, guys? Ask him. Just ask him, okay? Seriously.
Ask what? Just come straight. What's up?
Yeah, right.
Laying on him, man.
What's going on right now? We need to know about your source. Ted Jones. See, Dale here is a protest servant, and
No, I'm not. That's not what I am.
Oh,
But it doesn't.
well, he's not that, but he was outside Ted's
Whoa,
house. and he
whoa,
would-
whoa, whoa. Look, we don't want to bring you in to what we're in, okay? You don't want any trouble. We don't want to give you trouble. So it's probably best you don't know the whole story, okay?
You don't think I can handle danger?
What are you talking about?
You can.
I totally can. And for you to come into my house and not tell secrets because you think you're saving me, well, in reality, it just makes you look like a dumbass, okay? Because look at this. You see this? You see that? There's no hair under here, bro. Okay?
What's the significance of that?
It makes me aerodynamic when I fight. I can take danger.
Okay. Has anyone called asking about Saul or the Pineapple Express or anything? That's all we need to know. Is it uh-huh or uh-uh?
It's
There it is, man. Cleared. Over. Everything's fine. I told you, bro.
All right, so that's, hilarity is, not even a strong enough word to use for what happens later on. There's a big fight. Red pops up at the other times in the movie as well. I don't want to give too much away again, but a great side character. We'll get into a few more of them from that movie. Craig Robinson is another one that I absolutely love. So that is Red, played by Danny McBride in Pineapple Express as our cannabis character this week.
This is the Business of Cannabis, a joint venture between the Green Generation Co. and the Cannabis 101 podcast. Bringing you the latest bud-biz-buzz.
Diving into the business of cannabis with Malka Labell of the Green Generation Co. Find out how Malka can help you at www.greengencompany.com as I bring in the wandering Malka still on that beautiful BC trek. I'm so jealous that you're able to do this, and so great to chat with you on the road again. And we start with the lead topic, going back to where it all began. So tell us about the origins and the kind of the green roots of the Green Generation Company.
Totally. Yes. Thanks, Dean. Yeah. So I'm on this road trip that has been going on for a while, a couple of weeks, staying along the way in places to visit people, mostly clients and former clients in some cases. And that's actually what this is all about. So the Green Generation company actually started off about being a green power generation business opportunity. And it had more to do with clean power and sustainable green power. So like from solar and wind, and really clean tech is where it initially started. And it started with a company called Portable Electric, which is based out of Vancouver. It was founded by a friend of mine, Malka Labell, who, an oil and gas refugee himself. He came up with a patented technology with him and his partners that essentially stores solar and wind power in a battery that looks like a generator. So you see there on your screen, those are the portable electric fleet. And they've been in business since 2016, I believe, maybe a little bit before then. And they focused their area on the movie business and like basically power that needs to be quiet and that doesn't replaces diesel and gas generators, like sort of in an indoor or enclosed space. So that was sort of their first foray into the market. And in visiting Mark and talking to him on my trip out to BC, and following their growth, they have really just done some amazing things with the actual technology of making renewable energy storable, which is like sort of the big problem with renewable energy, is that there's no really good way to store the energy other than from the sun and from the wind when it's generated. So I got a chance to talk with him again, and I wanted to bring up the fact that this is really what the Green Generation company started as. And it really was an opportunity to take their business model and turn it into a power as a service or a rental model back before that was a thing. And I was really supportive of that and essentially took that at a fork in the road. So in my own career path, I was had been, watching Mark grow as an entrepreneur and as a friend. He had been an oil and gas engineer himself. So I also call him an oil and gas refugee because he sort of moved over into the sustainability world before everyone else did. And his huge hustle and his huge entrepreneurial spirit. And I had invited him to the company I was working at in the oil and gas world because they were largely in sort of a cutting edge in the data and the tech space in oil and gas. And his solution, his software, his technology I thought was a good complement. And I remember him wheeling his initial prototype, up the elevator, off the elevator, into our boardroom in 2014, before they really started manufacturing. And I was sort of harkening, we were just recalling that time. And this is something, it was a pivotal piece in my world because I took that business idea, that essentially the rental service, power as a service rental market, and took that business model into my MBA and literally ran it through Dragon's Den MBA class in our entrepreneurship and innovation. And essentially the business model was not well received. It was not clear how the investors would make their money back. And that's essentially why I pivoted into the Green Generation being into cannabis, because I was getting all this mail from the industry about thinking Green Generation had to be with cannabis, and the power generation model was not quite the right fit either. So that was my fork in the road, is that I chose not to pursue working with his company and instead worked on what is now the Green Generation company as a consulting sort of arm. But that's where it started. And watching them grow, they're now producing these 20K kilowatt hour electric generators that are all weatherproof. And it's like a Tesla battery, but it just doesn't have a car around it. So it can power and charge pretty much like everything from a car for 300 kilometers to an entire house facility. What they really found their stride is with COVID is these pop-up, medical centers or pop-up testing centers and all these things where you need power but maybe don't have an outlet nearby. So you just roll up one of these little guys and plug in, and there you go, there's your power. And it recharges with these solar panels out in the sun, or a fast charge, just plugging into a regular outlet inside on a grid or in the power source. And it's just, they've just working on their technology of going lighter weight batteries, so they're easier to move around, as well as faster charging, and just making them more versatile. And I've just been entirely enamored with how they've grown since I've started to know about them. And I just want to respect the place where it all came from. Mark was my connection. He's based in Vancouver, and I've got to visit his factory a couple times. his business is really core and now can complement the cannabis world because they provide both indoor and outdoor sustainable power solutions that are way less expensive than the power bills you would see from a grid power situation. And it's renewable and sustainable. So it sort of still meets all of the criteria that the green generation stands for. And now they have a bunch more sizes and options. They're all made down shore here in Canada. And it's very exciting to see them grow. And that's where it all began.
I like that. I like that at that fork in the road that you took and went separate ways, and both have found obviously a nice comfortable spot and some happiness. But I think it's always incredible to find more ways that we can use less of to provide, and that's something that sounds like something like this is right in their wheelhouse.
100%. Yeah, and soon I'll be able to have anyone can reach them through me or directly through them. They do have a place on their website. If you do hear this and you don't connect with me first, you can always use me as a referral. So the Green Generation Company or Malka Labell, they have a spot for that because they really recognize that their business grew from the support of others, whether indirectly or directly. That's a big part of the ethos of their company and mine as well. So I like to always help support other entrepreneurs that recognize that we're all in this together, and there's a way to do that. So I love that. I want to pay homage to that.
Yeah, and I think you raised a really good point about especially during COVID, where sometimes we need these emergency pop-up medical situations. This is perfect for that, depending on the size that you need, and for those looking in the cannabis space to leave less of a footprint. This is also perfect for that. So, it's kind of a blend of both worlds. So I really like that. All right, let's get on to change makers now. And I'm pretty excited about this one. So who and why are you going with this person in change makers?
So my change maker this week is Sandy Rogen. That's the mother of the famous Seth Rogen. Now, I'm not sure how many times I've mentioned on your show, but I know I've been talking about this for a long time. So Sandy and my mom are really good friends. So there's a little picture there. My mom is on the right and Seth's mom is in the middle, and that was taken in the summer of 2017. Seth and I were both born in Vancouver in the early 80s, Jewish moms. And they've been friends ever since. My mom moved back to Vancouver a few years ago and literally into Sandy's neighborhood, and they go on walks together and have dinner together on a regular basis, even in COVID. And I think that they're the closest proximity to each other, so they don't have to drive to get to each other, which is great for both of them. They do a lot of walking and talking because that's what mothers do. And they talk about their children all the time. So I got a chance to talk to Sandy when I was in Vancouver. Just to fill her in on some of the things that, I kind of think of her like a sort of a distant aunt or cousin. Even though she's not in my life directly, she's a big part of my mom's support system. And that's how I really paid homage to her help to my mom, because she's very grounding. She's a very natural, spirited, and just normal person. Sometimes my mom is sometimes like that and sometimes she's not. But I have to say that I got a chance to speak with her, and I told her about some of the work I'm doing and the Truth on Cannabis project, which is all about sort of where people came from and how they're related to the cannabis industry. And of course, her first objection is I have nothing to do with cannabis now at all. I'm like, well, you kind of do through extension of your son and his success. And I said, really, I just wanted to learn more about his upbringing. I know where he came from. I was around when he was very little, but I was very little too, so I don't remember that. But I guess I wanted to know sort of what's been happening or what happened to him and you, and how did you make such a perfect human is essentially what I was saying to her. So she laughed, she chuckled, she's like, you sound just like your mother. That was her comment. But she said, honestly, she did actually in our initial conversation share some very enlightening, I would say, mom hacks, which I have adopted on my own without even knowing that there were other mom hacks. And so we are going to be doing a more deep dive interview. We've scheduled for April the 14th for the Truth on Cannabis series. And I'm inviting other people that have questions for Sandy Rogen to go and visit our website, truthoncannabis.org. And there's a button there that says Ask Sandy. And if you have a question for her, I'll compile them and ask them during our interview. She was very open to talking and sharing her motherly wisdom. Whether she believes in everything will be determined. I don't know what her whole stance is on cannabis, but she's sort of been this amazing character and true life person that I'm excited that I know personally, and that we'll get a chance to speak to you more about coming up real soon here.
I think that's going to be really interesting for obviously fans of Seth Rogen, whether you're a fan of Seth Rogen because of his movies or just the social media profile or the cannabis side of Seth Rogen, because obviously he does have his own brand. I think it would be neat to get kind of an insight into that, because he's told some pretty funny stories about growing up and being caught with a bunch of mushrooms in his backpack or something like that. He said, when you get caught with a bunch of mushrooms, weed is a lot easier to slide by. And I don't know whether those are true or just funny quotes, but just to kind of get an insight into what the background was. And Seth Rogen has said, and we've talked about it on This Week in Cannabis News many times, about he talks about every decision he has made has been influenced by cannabis, because he's constantly using cannabis, and every decision while he's using cannabis has been influenced. So it's a really interesting success story that a lot of people can point to when people bring up that typical stigma about lazy stoners. Well, this is a guy who, have you ever seen, his pottery is unbelievable as well. I mean, this guy has a lot going on, and he is always, as he says, influenced by cannabis. So looking forward to kind of seeing that insight and also what her thoughts on the plant are as well.
Exactly. I have a few of those answers already based on our initial conversation. I'm not gonna give it away, but it's a little bit different than, or it's a little bit probably more common than you think as an answer. But I'm excited to hear more about the stories. And apparently his book is coming out in about a month or so. So I'm hoping I can get my hands on a copy of that through her maybe, and just kind of go with the stories in that. Apparently are like what you're saying. They're really his crazy and funny stories, and reading her comments around that, where she didn't even know that they were true. She didn't know about them. She wished she had known about them at the time. She maybe could have helped. I think that was her response. But I'm looking forward to checking those out, because I think they will be a riot and a good reflection on where we are in our place and time. Yeah,
don't you think when I watch Seth Rogen movies, and we just featured in Cannabis Characters Red from Pineapple Express, played by Danny McBride. But don't you think when I watch Seth Rogen in movies, I kind of just think that's Seth Rogen in real life. He seems really genuine, and while he plays different characters, there's always something that is still Seth Rogen. Although there's been some really non-comedic roles that he's played where he really shows I think some range. But a lot of those comedies, I just think that's kind of Seth Rogen.
I think so too. And the funniest thing about it, here's harkening back to the early stages of his career. So you remember the movie Superbad?
Yeah.
And Knocked Up. I think it's in both movies, actually. So there's scenes in those movies where you see it, the setup, the living room setup. I think it was Superbad. Maybe, no, it might have been, I think it was Knocked Up. Anyways, they're all sitting around in this patched together, jumbled furniture or whatever. The furniture in that set is literally from his mom's basement. And you know how I know that? Because my mom has the same furniture. So I'm I recognize that. That's a rattan sofa from,
Yeah.
So that's what I mean, is that the character and the environment are almost on point, not because I recognize them from the movie, because I recognize them from my own 80s growing up in Vancouver with the same people. So that's what I mean, is there's a few pieces to that and references in those movies early days that were references to situations in my own childhood, going to summer camp and going to the places that those people were. So Evan Goldberg, for example, his partner, we went to camp together in Kelowna, actually on Lake Kalamalka as children the same year. So I was there at the same time. We're the same age. So it's we're removed now, but not by much. And I think that that's really the cool part about it, is that we're coming back full circle, and why not, right? We're all in this together.
Early Freaks and Geeks with Seth Rogen is quite interesting to watch as well, before he became, the movie star Seth Rogen. All right, let's go with what it means to be green. Last time you were talking about things are greener on the other side in BC. Today, we're talking about whatever is brown can also be green. What are you going with here?
Yeah, I'm like so on the full-on spring analogies here. Yeah, so this picture that I took. I don't know if you're able to see that, but I took a picture when I was here the other day. I took it 2 days ago. It was a picture of a tree that was brown. There you go. And then the tree on the right, the green one, is the same tree from the same spot, like the exact same tree. It's a walkway here in Kelowna, in West Kelowna, called Wylie Bay. It's a beautiful, beautiful part of the waterfront right off of Boucherie Road. And Boucherie Road is a very long road of lots of wineries. It's wine country in Kelowna. There's like 30 wineries on this one road, and this is the bay at the end of this road. What I'm saying here is that whatever is brown, like this tree on the left, is going to turn green because it's going to be spring. And we just assume and adapt that that's the truth. We know that that's going to be true. There's no question that brown tree is going to be a green tree. And, for 38 summers, I went to this location. I've been in this part of the world for 38 summers, but I've never been here in winter before. Now, I know April's not winter, but it's kind of still chilly. It's not green, right? That's the whole point. And my comment around this is that we know that everything is brown, that all trees and grass, they were brown in winter, and then when the snow is gone, and then they become green. And we really recognize the beauty in the green part because we see it's beautiful. It's got its peacock feathers out. It's the most beautiful. It's got all dressed up. It's ready for the show with the leaves on it. But what I'm drawing this comparison here because in this exact same part of the world, in Canada, is where we really see where the brown is the common. It's the brown is the grounding. The brown is the constant. And it's what this is my analogy to this is around the legacy cannabis industry. So not far from this, where this tree is growing, is a lot of people that are part of the BC micro or the BC Craft Farmers Co-op. That's where I met them initially. They're literally down the road, and that's where they live. And this is where they live. And talking to them in person, so I've got a chance to sit down and talk with them in person since I've been here. They're members of the co-op, and I hear them talk, and they talk like brown is brown is brown. It's always gonna be brown. It's sturdy. It's strong. Just leave it the way it is. And I'm thinking of it like this green tree is kind of like the cannabis rec market. It's like, it's all dressed up. It's ready for the ball. It's ready for the rest of the world to see it at its best. From the same place, the same tree, but it's not the boring, mundane part. It's the beautiful part, but it's the same thing. And this is the mental gymnastics that I've been doing. Maybe there's a few too many joints in the picture, but that's okay. That's why we're all here. But sitting around talking to these people, they really, really respect the earth and the plant and the legacy and the medicine that they're building and they're growing. And that's what they do. They're growing medicine for their families, for their friends, for themselves. And the summertime only comes a few weeks out of the year. And the summertime comes and takes the summertime and takes the fun and takes the green and then leaves. And I think that is a way that this industry can coexist, both in the legacy realm and in the legal realm, is that just a recognition that they can be the part of the same thing. They just have different viewpoints from different people, and that's okay. And I think that's kind of the message here, is that we know it's going to be brown for a large part of the time in winter, and then it's going to be green. And the green brings new life, new money, new freshness, new perspective. But sometimes when you have this new perspective, all of a sudden that brown piece looks different, or is better, or is optimized and not cut down because it's brown and old. So I think that in this world, in this place, we can see that harmonization, and it's going to happen from these locations where the two sides of the cannabis conversation are really head on head, and they're coming from the same place. So I just wanted to point that out because it kind of struck me while I was smoking a joint in front of this tree that maybe this is why this has been such a struggle, is that there are two perspectives of the exact same thing. And we just have to have that as an open conversation. And that's what it means to be green this week.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think there's a lot of potential for people in the legacy market to get in to legalization and have a lot of success and help grow the industry properly the way they think they do. But there also has to be, have to get rid of those preconceived notions and opinions and things like that, and actually see it for what it is. I mean, if somebody sees the legalization market, that as something that's not right, and the black market that is right, that's kind of another form of the stigma. So, we have to make sure that, we talked about it in This Week in Cannabis News about the publisher of High Canada endorsing an illegal official website. Like that's wrong. That's irresponsible. That's, we have to, legalization is here. And, is it perfect? No, not at all. But, the black market is shrinking, and people need to, they have to let go of those preconceived notions and opinions and do some research and see that it's not just all corporate suits gobbling everything up. There are a lot of great small companies out there. So just like we're always trying to convince people about the plant that it's not dangerous, it's not devil's lettuce, it's not reefer madness, we also, I guess, have to convince the legacy market that it's not just suits gobbling up 100%. The money in the legalization market.
It's true. And unfortunately, I have to say the politics, like literally our political system has infiltrated that. And that's also not so cool, because politics are not supposed to be bought by companies. And unfortunately, they have been. And that's actually the key piece, is that politicians have left politics and joined the private, or the private sector is what it's called, and are on the boards of these cannabis legal and publicly traded companies. And that's the piece that's offside, is that, people that were in politics where they're out for the good of the people. That's what the whole point of politics is the democratic society. You're elected in office so that you have influence and you have the ability to take the needs of your constituents to the leadership of the country. But then when you're done with politics, and then you go back, and then you sort of get, you find a role, which is not a bad thing, but I'm saying that's essentially it's the other side of that conversation, which is the part that hurts people that previously would have voted for those people. That's where the money and the politics interact, which is offside in lots of countries, including our own. You can't do that anymore from a influential perspective. Like companies cannot pay politicians to lobby in the way that they used to be able to do that. The laws have changed around that, but the mentality of it hasn't. And that's what I mean, is that this is a mentality question. This is a point of view. And I'm saying in this piece is that it can be both. We can have our cake and eat it too. It's just the perception, the attitude, and the stigma has to change. And it's not the stigma in the only one spot. There's a whole bunch of stigma, like you said, Dean, that has to be cleared in order for this to be true.
Indeed. Good segment today. I want you to get back to your traveling, because I can't wait to hear some of the stories. But if you want to find out how Malka can help you, check it out on the screen, greengencompany.com. Enjoy BC, but remember, you got to come back to Alberta, okay? So you can't just stay in BC, but have fun on your travels, Malka. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Dean. Have a great day.
This is the Cannabis 101 podcast. It's all part of the cannabis life experience. Turning the wheel of cannabis one toke at a time.
All right. At any point, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do so on Twitter at the Cannabis 101. Facebook and Instagram, you can find us at the Cannabis 101 Podcast, and you can always email me, cannabis101podcast @gmail.com. You can also stay anonymous. If you'd like to win a prize pack, just please let me know. And you can visit cannabis101podcast.ca. You can find past episodes. You can get in touch with us there as well. You can also subscribe to the Weed Weekly. Just click on that green circle, and you are in the mix for the Weed Weekly. It'll come right to your inbox every Friday, and you can have the latest on the Cannabis 101 podcast. We also have a weekly giveaway and a lot of other fun stuff in there as well. Speaking of fun, check out stonesmiths.ca. The slash takes just 4 seconds to heat up, and then you fire away. It has 3 temperature settings, a 12-second auto fire mode. It is everything you need to dip your toe into the world of concentrates, or just leave the torch at home and use this. Fits right in your pocket. It's so awesome. And yeah, as a Canadian, we just talked about it in This Week in Cannabis News. Now's your chance to really support a local Canadian company. So if you were looking at ordering from something from the States, it's going to cost you a lot more. Way cheaper to grab one of these here in Canada. Big time Canadian company right here in Edmonton. Check them out at stonesmiths.ca.
Bud, dope, flower, ganja, Mary Jane.
We all have our own language when it comes to cannabis.
Herb, John Lennon, plant, Thai stick, salad.
So let's explore another weed word of the day.
Samuel L. Jackson, The Hobbit's Leaf, Lady Gaga, 420.
So for weed word of the day, I give you one slang term and one standard industry term. So it just helps educate us all a little bit, because a lot of these things, when I am doing my research, I haven't heard about before. So it educates me as well. So the slang term, I grew up with the term pocket rocket meaning something else. It meant Henri Richard, Maurice Richard's younger brother. Maurice was the rocket, Henri was the pocket rocket. So that's what I always think of when I hear pocket rocket. And then now I find out it's a term for a joint, and it makes sense. You know, a joint in your pocket is something that could send you to the moon, figuratively. So pocket rocket, I like that. I might have to start using that a little bit more. Let my friends know that I got a pocket rocket ready to go whenever we can get back to hanging out again. We'll have to have all our own pocket rockets for a little while. But yeah, a term for a joint is pocket rocket. Now, clone is the standard term, and you're going to hear this a lot as you see the plant on the screen when they're talking about growing. So this refers to basically a clipping from a plant, which you could put into the roots, and it will grow through what is called the cloning process of the mother plant. And you know, when we went to Parkland Flower, there's a room of mother plants where you can go in, you can take a clip off of that, put it in something else, and you have a whole new plant to go off. This is how people continually grow from one plant. There's been mother plants that have been around for years and years. Now, they do weaken a little bit at times, as from what I understand. I'm not a growing expert, but from what I understand, they do sometimes get a little bit weak over time. But one mother plant can last a long time and provide so much goodness for everybody out there. So there we go. That is your weed word of the day. On the slang side, pocket rocket. And on the standard side, we are going with clone. On weed word of the day.
The cannabis life experience. It's not just about getting high. It's about getting healthy. Turning the wheel of cannabis, one toke at a time.
All right, that is going to wrap things up for another episode 89, hour number 1. We'll have hour number 2 coming out tomorrow. I hope you enjoyed this show, whether you're watching it on YouTube or streamed on our social media channels, or you're listening to it wherever you find your podcasts. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You are our most important partner, because without you, this show would not last very long. So thank you for tuning in to the program. Please subscribe wherever you're watching it. If you're on YouTube, hit that bell. You'll get a notification every time. Wherever you're listening, please leave us a review and let us know what you think of the show. It's obviously very important to us to be able to know how to improve the program as much as we possibly can. And make sure you check out the cannabis101podcast.ca, where you can subscribe to the Weed Weekly. If you're in the mix, you can get a you can win a prize pack every Friday, but only if you sign up. This is only for subscribers. So please tell your friends, and if you are subscribing already, tell your friends, and if you haven't, just head to the website, click on the green circle, and you are in the mix. And it's an easy way to keep up with the Cannabis 101 podcast. If you're into other shows, check out Podcast Alley. I've got a whole bunch of shows on there of the sports variety, and then, of course, the Cannabis 101 podcast. And you can link up to me on those websites, or you can email me, cannabis101podcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to partner up with the show, or you think you would make a good guest, I would absolutely love to hear from you on that note. All right, reminder, our cannabis question is, what is your favorite 1-to-1 balanced cultivar? We'll have some of your responses, hopefully, on hour number 2 on Wednesday, when we will speak with Winder Hughes, CEO of Relevant. the new vibe that we're on. Make sure you check us out on our Relevant Vibe. Just download the Relevant app and you can join the fun. So we're going to talk to Winder about what the app is all about, what you can expect, and why you should be on a cannabis-friendly space. Of course, Chris Ianson is our educator. He's the regional manager with Plant Life Cannabis. He will drop by for Know Your Buds and much, much more. Past episodes can be found at cannabis101podcast.ca, and as mentioned, Podcast Alley is where you can find a whole bunch of my shows. As we always do, we're going to leave you with the marijuana song from the artist My Dead Dog. Reminder, it's not just about getting high, it's about getting healthy. We will talk again on Wednesday. Have a great week in cannabis, everyone.